This video covers the IGCSE Biology Objective 6.2.3 on the 2025 CAIE syllabus to explain how the structures in a leaf are adapted for photosynthesis. So let's look at these adaptations. The first thing we're going to look at is the epidermal tissue on the upper side of the leaf as notated here. So the first thing we have is the cuticle. So the cuticle is a waxy layer that is going to provide waterproofing. This is going to actually waterproof the inside of the leaf to prevent water loss. Remember, the sun is shining right on the upper surface of the leaf, and so that will generate some heat, which could cause the leaf and the plant to lose a lot of water. So in order to prevent this, because that would then kill the plant, in order to prevent this, this waxy layer keeps the water inside as much as possible. We also have the upper epidermal cells, the upper epidermis. These are transparent, and that is to allow light to pass through to get to the photosynthetic cells in the leaf. This cell also is what is going to make the cuticle. So those are two important aspects. While they don't do photosynthesis, they are aiding in the overall process for the leaf, which is the organ that does photosynthesis. The second section is the mesophyll tissue that we're going to take a look at. This is sort of, I would say, the middle section of the leaf where photosynthesis actually happens. So first of all, we have the palisade cells. So the features of the palisade cells are that they are tall, narrow, and close to the top of the leaf, as well as having many chloroplasts. This is going to allow them to collect as much sunlight as possible and to do photosynthesis. These are the main photosynthetic cells of the leaf. Secondly, within the mesophyll tissue, we have the spongy cell. Now, these are loosely packed, and that is going to create air spaces. In addition, while we can't see that here, they do have this film of water, and this is going to allow it to dissolve gases, which can then move through the cells to get where they need to go. Then lastly, within this tissue, we have the air spaces. The air spaces are there in order to allow for efficient gas exchange. Not only are the leaves doing photosynthesis, but gas exchange is happening as well in that organ. Within the mesophyll tissue, we also have the vascular bundle. These are the leaf veins, as we've talked about in the past. And we know that there are two components. The component that is on the upper side of the leaf is the xylem. The xylem is going to transport water up to the leaf. And as we know, water is very important for all of the functions of living organisms, as well as for the functions of enzymes to make photosynthesis to happen as quickly as possible. The lower portion of the vascular bundle is called the phloem. The phloem is going to transport nutrients to and from the leaf. Now, when we talk about transport in plants, we're going to talk about how all of this happens. So right now we don't need to worry about the how, we just need to know the what. Xylem transports water up to the leaf. Phloem transports nutrients both to and from the leaf. And finally, we have the lower epidermal tissue of the leaf structure. So we do have a few things to consider here. First of all, we have pairs of guard cells. The guard cells open and close the stomata. They are going to allow diffusion of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. And we'll talk about how that happens in just a minute. The stomata, or the stoma, is the opening in the lower epidermis. This is going to allow gases to pass through, the gases that we just mentioned. So we have carbon dioxide entering through the stomata. That's going to allow photosynthesis to happen, and we have oxygen and water vapor leaving the stomata into the atmosphere rather than being collected in the leaf. They are then dispelled as waste. So the lower epidermis, which are the cells that are on the bottom, again, those are transparent. They do not have Chloroplasts, these are going to contain the guard cells and the stomata, and we've already seen what that looks like in a previous video. All right, so let's just briefly talk about how material is going to move for photosynthesis. So let's first take a look at the yellow arrow or the orange arrow. This represents sunlight that's going to pass through the transparent cuticle and the transparent upper epidermis in order to reach the chloroplasts in the palisade cells just below. Let's take a look at the blue arrow. Water is going to travel from the roots in the xylem vessels. Again, when we talk about transport in plants, we'll talk about the various mechanisms that allow this to happen. But water travels from the roots into the xylem vessels. When they get to the leaf, water is then going to travel into the chloroplast by osmosis. That is water moving from a high water potential from the xylem vessel into an area of low water potential in the chloroplast. And finally, we have the movement of carbon dioxide represented by the red arrow. So carbon dioxide is going to diffuse through the stoma from the atmosphere from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. High concentration in the atmosphere, low concentration in the leaf. Why? Because the leaf is constantly using the carbon dioxide, so it's always in low amounts inside the leaf, and then it's going to diffuse through the air spaces to get to the chloroplast. And again, same gradient. The last thing we want to consider is how the guard cells work. So first of all, let's remind ourselves that it's a plant cell and there is an outer cell wall. The outer cell wall is thinner on the convex side, that is the side that bulges outward on the outside of the guard cells, compared to the layer of cell wall on the concave side. That is the inside where the stoma would be located. So, guard cells contain chloroplasts. Unlike all the other epidermal cells, that means they do photosynthesis and they're producing glucose. This is important because it is the production of glucose that is going to lower the water potential inside the cell. Because of this low water potential, water is going to move by osmosis into the guard cell, and this is going to cause the guard cell to become turgid. So again, the photosynthesis in the cell produces glucose. Glucose is going to lower the water potential inside the cell, and water is going to move in by osmosis and cause the cell to become turgid. Now, two things happen. Number one, there are these fibers that are running throughout the guard cell. These are cellulose fibers. They're going to prevent the cell from actually widening when turgid. So some other type of movement needs to happen. And what's going to happen is these thick inner cell walls become less stretchy because they're thicker than the outer cell wall. So when the cell becomes turgid, they're going to bend, okay, rather than stretch. And that is what's actually going to open the stomata. Of course, all of this is happening only during daylight hours when photosynthesis happens. So stomata and the guard cells are closed during night hours. This is very important to understand why the guard cells open and close. So let's just take a look at this video microscope image of a guard cell. We can see this is the lower epidermis. We can see the guard cell is there. It is closed, and we can see that it has chloroplasts. So let's just take a look at what happens to the guard cell and how the stomata opens as water floods the cell. And there you can see it has opened. So again, just to review, photosynthesis happens, there's an increase in glucose, that's going to lower the water potential, water enters the cells become turgid. Because of the cellulose fibers, the thin outer cell wall and the thick inner cell wall, the cells are going to bend rather than expand. And so therefore that is what opens the stoma.